They thought they could take everything from a struggling family, their home, their future, their peace, all for a little extra money they didn't even need. But when greed meets loyalty, things can get ugly. Because I wasn't about to let my best friend's dream die, not without a fight they'd never forget. If you've ever watched someone powerful crush the little guy just because they could, hit that like button. Today's story is about justice, real justice, the kind that doesn't come from a courtroom, but from creativity, loyalty, and a little bit of chaos. My best friend Sarah and her husband Tom had 5 kids, loud, messy, beautiful chaos in the form of a family. They lived in one of the most expensive cities in the country, and every dollar mattered. The only place they could afford was this rundown 4-bedroom house. Old pipes, stained walls, a kitchen that smelled like someone had died in it. But it was home. The owner was an elderly lady named Margaret, kind and sharp, with more money than she'd ever need. She adored Sarah's family, the noise, the warmth, the laughter. She often said, "You remind me of my younger days, dear." When Sarah confessed that they dreamed of owning a home someday, Margaret smiled and made a promise. "When you're ready, this house will be yours. I'll sell it for the same price I bought it for. You've earned it." And true to her word, she froze their rent. For 5 years, she didn't raise it a single cent. Sarah and Tom saved everything. No vacations, no fancy dinners. Tom took overtime shifts until his back ached. They believed that one day, this little home would finally be theirs. And then, 2 days after they told her they were ready to buy, Margaret passed away. No paperwork, no contract, just a promise that died with her. That's when the Sharks arrived, her 4 adult children, each of them already dripping in money. Mansions, boats, luxury cars. When they first met Sarah, they smiled politely and said all the right things. Of course, the sale will still go through. Mom wanted that. We just have to wait for probate. Sarah believed them. She wanted to believe them. So they started fixing the place, painting the walls, stripping the old wallpaper, planting flowers by the porch. They were turning the house into a real home. But when probate ended, months later, reality hit like a truck. The heirs decided they wanted $80,000 more than the agreed price. No warning, no discussion, just greed. And to make it worse, they told her the house would go on the open market in 7 days. Sarah's loan was based on the original price. Now it was useless. They couldn't reapply that fast. Her voice trembled when she called me. "If we lose this house, I don't know what we'll do. Rents have gone crazy. We'll never find another place for the kids." I could hear one of the toddlers crying in the background. And I swear, something inside me snapped. I wasn't just angry. I was boiling. These people were millionaires, multimillionaires, and they were about to destroy a family's life for pocket change. I couldn't just stand by and watch. So while Sarah and Tom scrambled to reapply for another loan, I started planning something unconventional. If those greedy brats wanted to sell the house so badly, maybe we could make sure no one else wanted to buy it. I spent hours researching how property viewings work, what makes a house attractive, and more importantly, what makes it repulsive. Then I called Sarah. "We're going to make this the least desirable house in the city." She hesitated. "You mean mess it up?" "Not exactly. We're just going to highlight its flaws." First, we made it look cramped. We pulled all the furniture away from the walls, filled the corners with borrowed chairs, boxes, and random decorations. We even hung some of Tom's old motorcycle posters, dark, greasy, and loud, all over the living room. The once bright space now looked like a bachelor's garage. Next, the smell. Sarah boiled an entire head of cabbage on the stove for hours. Then we mixed ammonia and water, spraying it lightly near the front and back doors. It reeked like every cat in the neighborhood had claimed the place. For the final touch, Tom dropped a dozen rotten eggs down the drain. The smell of sewer gas crept up through the pipes like something from a horror movie. Even I could barely stand it, but we weren't done. Across the street, a neighbor, old Joe, agreed to help. We dragged a moldy old couch onto his front lawn. It looked like a crime scene prop. Then I called in reinforcements. Anyone with a loud, crappy car, you're invited. On open house day, they were to drive by, rev their engines, honk, and make the street feel like a traffic nightmare. And then came the pièce de résistance, our rugby club. We offered free barbecue and cheap beer if they showed up wearing their roughest gear and parked their motorcycles out front. They came in droves, big, tattooed, leather-jacketed giants, laughing, shouting, and drinking in the front yard next door. By the time the real estate agent arrived, the street looked like a biker gang's block party. I'll never forget that day. Dozens of cars rolled by, slowed down, and sped off again. A few potential buyers parked, opened their doors, and immediately wrinkled their noses. One woman barely lasted 2 minutes inside before retreating to her car, coughing and fanning her face. Another guy tried to strike up a conversation with one of the party guests. The biker smiled and said, "Oh yeah, mate, we're here every couple of weeks. Had a big bash 3 doors up last night. We're just recovering." Then, just to seal the deal, he added, "You might want to check the drains inside. They stink up every few days. Tree roots or something." The man's smile vanished. He thanked him and drove away without another word. The only real potential buyer was gone within 10 minutes. Meanwhile, Sarah's kids were quietly watching from their window, whispering, "Is it working, Mom?" And she smiled for the first time in weeks. "I think so, baby. I really think so." When the dust settled, the real estate agent called the heirs. Only one offer had come through, from Sarah and Tom. They offered a little more than before, but far less than the inflated asking price. The heirs, furious, accepted just to get rid of the problem property. They signed the paperwork and took the deposit the same day. And here's the best part. The very next morning, another buyer tried to outbid them by $30,000. But thanks to anti-gazumping laws, it was too late. The sale was locked. Sarah and Tom finally owned their home. I would have paid good money to see those greedy heirs' faces when they realized their golden goose had laid an egg, and it smelled like rotten cabbage. The house still isn't perfect. The kitchen's still ancient, the drains still act up sometimes, but it's theirs. Every time I visit, I see the paint Sarah chose, the little garden the kids planted, the marks on the wall where they measured their height year after year. It's more than a house. It's a symbol of a promise kept, even after the person who made it was gone. And somewhere out there, 4 spoiled heirs are probably still wondering why that property got such terrible reviews at the open house. Sometimes revenge doesn't have to be cruel. It just has to be clever. The greedy think they can play with people's lives, but karma always finds creative friends. If that ending gave you chills, hit that like button. It really helps the channel out. And tell me in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories where justice always finds its way home.